Hello, everybody. Already back, and we have this panel on regulation, and we're gonna start to let the people coming in. Kun Sanjay, Miss Melody, please try to unmute yourself. Hi. Hi, Melody.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you very much for joining. We are letting the other panelists in, and we're gonna start soon.
Okay.
Hey, Sanjay.
Hi, Max.
Great to have you. And Kun Amphornphan, very nice background.
Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Kun Pak. Hi, Kun Kullarat. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. And thank you so much, all of you. We have so far 2 great panels with Joe Lubin to start, very interesting, and with the Ethereum Enterprise Association. And yeah, now today, it's a very interesting topic for the ETHBKK 2020. We are going to talk about regulation in your field, and we have a Melody from Hong Kong, which is going to give us an outside perspective in some way. So I will come back at the end of the session. I will let Kun Sanjay, your moderator, starting, and I will maybe ask some Q&A questions at the end. So I will jump in after that. So I wish you all a great session. Thanks again to everyone to joining, and enjoy.
Thanks.
Thanks. Go ahead.
All right.
Sanjay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, yep. So it's good to see everyone again. So I think so thanks to the Atato team as well and ETH Bangkok for having all of us here today. So I think we have a few attendees today, around 80, 90 plus more than 100. So just to give the viewer some overview of the panel discussion, like we will be talking about the 4 main topic, I would say. So first of all, on the overview on the regulation and challenges within Thailand, and I think Hong Kong, Melody can share some. And then we're going to talk about the potential upcoming security token framework and what has been happening in Thailand as well. And then also like how do we balance the regulation and innovation so we don't over-regulate. So I think the first question to all the panelists would probably be a quick introduction of yourself for the viewer to see, to know all of you. So maybe I'll start off with Melody.
Okay. So hi, everyone. Thanks to the organizer for having me here, and nice to meet you all virtually. So I am the General Counsel of BC Technology Group Limited. So BC Group owns OSL, which is probably a name more familiar to the audience. It represents a brand name of a group of fintech companies operating in the digital asset and blockchain space. So BC Group and OSL, we set ourselves apart from other companies operating in the same space in a number of ways. First, BC Group is a listed company listed on the main board of Hong Kong Stock Exchange. It is audited by one of the big 4, and its audited financials are publicly available. And in August this year, we received an approval in principle for our application to the Securities and Futures Commission in Hong Kong, the SFC, for licenses to operate as a virtual asset trading platform and dealer. And once we get the license, we'll be allowed to trade security tokens as well. OSL has 4 main business lines. We run an OTC brokerage desk, an exchange platform, custody, and we also provide a tech solution, what we call SaaS, software as a service, for corporate entities which want to run a white label exchange platform. Now, in my role, I oversee the legal affairs of the group, including advising the group on its international expansion and licensing strategy, and also new product offerings related to digital assets. So products such as lending and borrowing, structured products, etc. So that's me, and nice to meet you all.
All right, perfect. So we'll move on to Kun Amphornphan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amphornphan Veerapong. I'm an Assistant Director of the FinTech Department of the Security and Exchange of Commission of Thailand. And my role and responsibility is to build a regulatory framework for the digital asset, especially the digital token offering, and also the supervision of the ICO portal as well. And I also do the implementation of the regulation as well, and also approve the issuer that we want to issue the digital token offering, and also anyone who wants to become an operator as an ICO portal, I will have to approve that as well, and ongoing supervision. So, and thanks for having me here.
Yeah, I think you sound very busy from the regulator perspective. Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe we move on to Pak.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me today. I'm Pak from KBTG. We are the subsidiary of Kasikorn Bank, focusing on technology and innovation. Currently, my focus is on the digital asset project. You guys may have seen the news on the early October this month that we are working with the Stock Exchange of Thailand to setting up the new digital asset ecosystem, which will be open for everyone at the end. So that's my focus currently. And yeah, and my role is a product manager. So basically I'm doing everything to make sure that the product will go out.
Okay, so from the apply perspective as well. So how to deal with regulators or Pak.
Yeah,
and last but not least, but Kullarat.
Hello everyone, my name is Kullarat Phongsathaporn and I'm a partner in financial services at a law firm called Baker Mckenzie. I myself specialize in fintech and digital assets. So I support the clients in their digital asset related businesses or projects, from obtaining licenses to preparing legal documentation, providing advice on regulatory and compliance issues, structuring and implementing special projects like collaboration projects or blockchain projects, as well as ICO, STO projects in different industries, and the creation of digital platforms.
Okay, perfect. So I think we have a really diverse panel. So two players from the private sector, one in Hong Kong and one in Thailand. And we have one of the top law firm here with us, Kundil from Baker, and then we have the regulator perspective. So I think it'd be really interesting panel as well. So maybe I'll get the start on this, right? So we'll have to probably start off with the regulator first. So since we're going to talk about the overview of the regulation, so maybe Kun Amphornphan can talk about the current regulation in Thailand within the digital asset royal decree, and then explain to us more about what is in the roadmap a bit, I think. Yeah, so we can go on from there.
Okay, thanks, Sanjay. Actually, in Thailand, we have a law dedicated to the digital asset business, which is called Royal Decree on Digital Asset Business, which empower the SEC Thailand to regulate all types of activity in the digital asset space, both in primary market and secondary market. And under this law, we have two types of digital asset, namely cryptocurrency and digital token. As for the cryptocurrency, you may know already that it's like a medium of exchange or means of payment, but it will be not deemed as a legal tender in Thailand, and because it can be very volatile. Secondly, as for the digital token, it also can be classified in two types as well. The first one is called investment token, which represent the right of the investor to participate in the investment in any project or business. The right of the investor may be in the form of revenue sharing or the profit sharing generated from the project. The substance of this type of token is quite similar to the traditional security, equity like or debt like, but and also another type of the digital token is called utility token, which you are quite familiar with it because it gives you the right for the investor to use the specific good and service or acquire those goods and service. So as for the activity that we have, that we will have to regulate, can be classified into two types of activity as well. The first one is the offering of the digital token, and the second one is the business undertaking digital asset related activities. Like right now we have the digital asset exchange, broker, and dealer. So let me get back to the digital token offering and how we regulate. So actually, to regulate the digital token offering, our key concern mainly focus on two areas, which are how to separate the legitimate ICO from scam, and how to ensure that investors get adequate information that they can use to make a well-informed decision. And to tackle this concern, we specify that if the company wants to raise funds through ICO, they will need to work with the operator called ICO portal, obtaining the approval from the SEC, and they have to come with the ICO portal and to submit the application, the filing with us to obtain the approval of the digital token offering from the SEC. So I think that the role of the ICO portal are similar to the combination of the investment banking in the traditional deals and the underwriters, because they can use the technology like blockchain to distribute the token. And their role are so important here, since they will help the investor and the SEC as well to screen out the illegitimate one and ensure that the qualification of the issuer and the disclosure of the information consistent with the regulation. And after the completion of the offering, issuer of the digital token have an ongoing duties to disclose information to the investor as well, such as use of proceeds, financial condition, and the progress of the project. And as for the regulation on the digital asset business operator side, those who wish to operate digital asset exchange, broker, and dealer are now required to obtain a relevant license from the Minister of Finance upon SEC recommendation before beginning the operation. We also require them to have an adequate capital requirement, reliable operating and risk management system, especially the part of the cybersecurity, and also the proper asset segregation of the client asset. And the approved operator have to conduct the KYC, CDD, and AML according to the AML law. And that's a quick brief overview of the regulation. Thank you.
All right, perfect. I think that's a very comprehensive view on the current regulation. So maybe I will jump into from the law firm's perspective first, right? Since Khun Diu probably helped, I think, countless clients navigating in this space. So what is your thoughts on the current framework, and what challenges you see as a private firm trying to help company navigate this?
Yeah, thank you, Khun Sanjay. So I think that digital asset industry is a very dynamic and fast-changing industry, and the influx of resources into the R&D of the technology itself and the creativity in the industry, I think it results in the novelty and sophistication in business models and products all the time. We have witnessed the emergence of new products and phenomena all the time, from ICO to STO, IEO, stablecoin, now DeFi and CBDC. So it is quite impossible for the laws and regulations to be prepared and remain applicable, relevant, or practical at all times, because the players, products, services, platforms, they keep evolving at a rapid rate. So other jurisdictions, and not just in Thailand, also face similar issues. So sometimes there are also the products that are hybrid products, which involve various laws and regulations that are supervised by various regulators, such as we're talking about crypto payment, stablecoin wallet, or digital tokens with hybrid characteristics and mixed rights, right? So there are a lot of challenges in this industry, I would say. It is a challenge for lawyers in all jurisdictions to analyze the legal issues based on the existing regulations that may not yet caught up with the market development in some aspects, because it's not possible to do so. It is challenging to understand various laws and regulations and be able to connect the dots or complete the jigsaw of these interconnected laws and regulations. So for the solutions, it's not enough for lawyers to know what the law says. it's more important to understand the rationale behind the laws and regulations, and to be able to analyze them based on the rationale, and to support the constructive conversations with the regulators to bring about a practical interpretation of the laws and regulations. And it is also good to see that regulators in Thailand are open to learning from the market. So lawyers need to be the bridge that helps the constructively constructively support the conversation between businesses and regulators, and to positively support the change in the laws and regulations when appropriate. Like we can now see glimpses of the next wave in this industry already in the near future. And as lawyers, we must be ready for it and prepared for it. We see activities around fund management and advisory in other markets. And these may also soon be regulated in Thailand as well. There may be custodian requirements that may be imposed for enhanced customer protection. And there will likely be more regulations under digital asset law that may be based on the concepts of securities law to ensure similar protection for customers and investors. We will also likely witness the emergence of digital asset derivatives and DeFi and tokenization of real-world assets in many industries into the digital asset world.
Okay, I think that's very comprehensive, right? I think what you sum it up is quite well. That you're like you're saying that lawyers are like the bridge that help connect the businesses and the regulator. And I think we will touch point on some of the regulation that you mentioned as well, like about the fund management custodian and some security law, I think in the later session. So let's hear from Pak as well, as one of the private company trying to, with the announcement of KBTG, right, trying to apply the ICO portal, is it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so I think Kun Amphornphan and Kun Kullarat already covered a lot. Just to add a bit on from the private sector perspective. So about the process, I think it started from getting the license, right? So you have to make sure that we pass all the criteria and then be able to apply for the license, and that including from both business and technology perspective. And after getting the license, I think it's quite similar to traditional banking, investment banking processes, that we have to find the right issuers, find the right asset to tokenize, and then also do the due diligence or the legal processes or the regulatory processes to make sure that the asset or the project that we going to tokenize will be attractive enough to the investors. And also, I mean, like good enough for the business to jump into the new business, because we have to understand that there is a lot of risks and uncertainty in this very early stage of our digital asset business in the countries. I think that's kind of an science and art of ICO portal business, that we have to balance between the attractiveness of the project, of the tokens, or the benefits to all the stakeholders, and also have to make sure that if we go out safely for everyone. And that's something that I think we are very lucky to have very supportive of our regulators. Thank you a lot, Kun Amphornphan, that the SEC already support a lot, and I believe we will see a lot of new regulations or announcement that will make sure that the industry will be able to play in the field without, you know, like having to concern that we will be blocked or anything. And I think that's something we probably see not just from us, KBTG, but from other players as well, from all the ICO portal businesses and exchange, and also other business that already in the capital market that looking into what's happening right now in the industry and try to figure out how they can involve and build the ecosystem together. For example, the Stock Exchange of Thailand, who have similar vision on, democratize investment, try to encourage the new
maybe
asset type.
Pak, let me jump in
Yep.
a bit here, since we have a
Sure, man.
question, right? Since you mentioned about the Stock Exchange of Thailand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what SET and KBTG are collaborating about? I think there was one question there.
Okay, sure. So we have a similar vision on how to on how we want to encourage investment in Thailand, not just the capital market working very well right now, but we want to promote new type of investment. We want to touch into both investor side and industry side, be able to fundraise in a new way. So basically, we are building an ecosystem which will be open for everyone to join. It's not exclusive, and I have to mention this again because some media is still confused if this is going to be a private project between Stock Exchange of Thailand and KBank, which is not. So this will be a new infrastructure for digital asset. We are building, designing all the platform together. Make sure we have needed entity, needed business function to be able to run the new industry safely, securely. And then we also work on the higher level that for KBTG will be ICO portal business. And for the Stock Exchange of Thailand, they will play as a digital asset exchange. In the future, hopefully we have more people jump in. So the ecosystem we have more people and be able to support all the business cases and promote the industry in overall.
Okay, I think that's very comprehensive, and so I think like people are not too confused anymore regarding SET and KBTD collaboration. Moving to Melody, right? I think since we are mainly talking about Thailand here, maybe you could give us some glimpse on what's happening on the Hong Kong regulatory framework side, and how do you think it bodes with the Hong Kong private company? And I think I don't want to say a word compared to Thailand, but maybe just share few things that we can learn from each other, I think.
Sure. So I echo a lot of the other panel speakers. Their sentiments towards regulatory certainty and the difficulties for regulators to keep pace with the fast changing, I guess, creativity in this space. Before maybe I go into the details of the distinguishing features of the Hong Kong licensing framework, maybe I'll take the audience on a ride on a journey on how the SFC, the Hong Kong regulator, get to where they are now. So I think back in 2017, there was an ICO boom, and this has definitely caught the attention of global regulators because of the scam and fraud and losses suffered by investors. And SFC has, in the last few years, issued a number of warnings and taken enforcement actions against certain issuers, basically claiming that the offering of tokens, in spite of the label ICO, they were really an illegal offering of securities, and so they should be subject to securities regulations. So what SFC did in late 2018, they launched a sandbox. So in my own words, this works like a soft industry consultation. Many people applied, and it provides a way, the sandbox framework provides a way for SFC to work with some credible industry players to really take a deep dive and to understand the asset class, including some of the operational aspects of how a platform is being run, including wallets, security issues. They are cognizant that they didn't have statutory powers to regulate the asset class of virtual or digital assets as a whole, because it comprises of coins like Bitcoins, Ether, which are decentralized without a central issuer, right? So these are the so-called utility tokens. So at the end of the sandbox period, which ran for around 12 months, they came to the view that it was feasible and appropriate for them to regulate this space. So what they did was they launched a new licensing framework and opened it for application back in November last year. They designed a specific set of terms and conditions which are only applicable to virtual asset trading platforms and dealers, and they added onto the existing securities laws. Now, OSL having been anticipating this for the last 12 months, we became the first applicant in November last year. Yeah, so we submitted our application right the day after SFC launched the new framework. Now, coming into a few distinguishing features of the SFC licensing framework. So first, unlike other countries which adopted a fragmented approach along digital asset types, for example, a lot of countries have different licensing regimes to regulate security tokens, utility tokens, or e-money. SFC implemented one single licensing framework for all types of virtual assets by adapting its existing framework for securities broker and dealers. But how do they do that, right? They're able to do this by adopting an opt-in approach. So a company can opt into this licensing regime if it trades at least one security token, which brings it squarely within SFC regulatory oversight. Now, in this way, SFC was able to very quickly establish a comprehensive framework, which is well tested without the need to go through lengthy legislative process. I mean, it did a 1 year long sandbox, but at the end of it, it was very quick. It just published a set of terms and conditions, and then it was open for business, right? Open for application. Now, this is different from what we observed. This is slightly different from Singapore, Japan, European countries, and the UK, which have been going through multiple rounds of lengthy industry consultation, which will ultimately lead to another lengthy legislative process. And also notable is that SFC adopted a phased approach. So they started the regime is designed only for professional investors, and it provides a pathway for the licensee to become eligible trading counterparties of licensed institutional investors. So what's the result? So now we have in Hong Kong a licensing regime that provides investor protections that are highly recognizable by traditional financial institutions and professional investors. And at the same time, it has industry-specific features that are tailor-made for this new asset class, including hot and cold digital wallet insurance, client asset segregation for digital assets, and also they impose requirements for platform operators to have market surveillance tools to ensure an orderly market. So at the end of the day, I think echoing other panel speakers' views and their thoughts, regulatory certainty is paramount to creating, to basically grow this space and to allow legitimate cross-border transactions, bringing transparency and market integrity. Yeah, and it's good for business.
Yeah, definitely. So just to sum it up there, right? I mean, like the framework that Hong Kong has been doing is probably like the one framework for all, and then there's adoption for different sort of businesses, right? Maybe my question a bit more to you might be, like the part that OSL had applied for the license last year, right? Last November. What is the time frame for that? Like how long it took you guys to get the license, and how many other players have the license as well? Maybe just a quick info on that.
Yeah, so we is an approval in principle, which comes with it a number of conditions for us to receive the licenses. So we're working towards those, and we are hoping that we will be getting the license in the near term. And in terms of other participants, as I said, there's no licenses have been granted, and the application process it's confidential. So we probably can guess who are out there who have applied, but we're not in a position to comment on that.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. So I think that's quite comprehensive from the view of the Thai SEC, from the Hong Kong private sector, Thailand private sector, and the legal side as well. So I think moving on a bit to some of the topic that we've been hearing about, right? Like there's talk about like potential security token framework. Like maybe I can start off with Pak on this, since you're applying for the ICO portal, and you mentioned a bit about the security token offering in Thailand and what tokenization of asset might look like over here.
Sure.
So maybe, yeah.
Okay. First of all, I think the word security token might, the definition of it might depend on country by country, right?
Yeah.
For example, in Thailand, I'm not sure that we can like really call it security token for now. So I move a little bit from security token to something like asset-backed token, which I think it's more understandable, and then we can look at it on the same thing. So for the asset-backed token, I think it's very interesting. First, because we just have like back 4 or 5 months ago, we have a new announcement from the SEC to allow ICO portal to start selling the asset-backed token, right? And that's with that announcement, we can understand what and how we can do it, and that will help the industry to move alongside with the regulation. So if we ask which type of asset might be like one of the first asset to be tokenized and sell in the country, I'm on my first thought would be a real estate. I think that's the most common asset that people are looking at. It can be, like a new project, a greenfield project, a brownfield project. It can be cash flow from the project. I think it really depends on how we find the asset and the right team. And I mentioned the right team because it's very important for ICO portal to meet with the right issuer. This is very new for everyone, and in order to get something out of their company to tokenize and sell it to investor, we need more than just the right financial instrument. We need like the support from the management, the vision of everyone involving in the project to to spend a lot of time from here to there, which is not just like due diligence, valuation, and sell it and post on Facebook and stuff. We have to do everything from ground up to make sure that this is the right project for everyone, and I think that's a lot of challenge for the industry players, and also for the regulators to allow us to play in the ground, on the ground. So I think looking at another point that I want to mention is that I think it's the right time to look into asset-backed token and ask ourselves what we want the asset-backed token or digital asset or investment token, utility token it to be, what we want it to be, right? We want it to be just another financial instrument for the business to be able to raise funds from another market, or we want it to be different from existing financial instrument. We want it to be new to the investor as well, or I think the question is what we want it to be. So with that questions, we can decide not just on the business side, but also on the regulation side, if we want the risks of the instrument to be higher or lower than other existing instruments, and how much we want to take risks in order to try if this is the right asset class we want to go, or if it doesn't work, then we come back and reevaluate how we want to tackle and proceed on the industry.
That's quite I think quite interesting to see from your end as well. Like you mentioned a bit about the asset-backed token, right? Even the greenfield project. I mean, that would be ideal as well. So I think maybe we can ask Bill to shed us some light on this as well. What type of what do you think is like the type of security offering that are we like? Pak mentioned something about only asset-backed, so there's other type of asset-backed such as equity back as well. It could be a form of fund, and maybe you can touch a bit on this point since you've been working with some potential asset or STO investment token. I don't know how to call it anymore.
Thank you, Khun Sanjay. I agree with Khun Pak that the term STO may have different meanings to some people. Yeah. So I will comment based on the context that security tokens mean tokens representing the rights in an underlying investment asset or in an investment contract over assets or projects. So in other words, an STO in this context is an investment product that is backed by real world assets such as like property, commodities, or securities. So if you interpret STO this way, then depending on the rights attached to the tokens, some STOs may be considered under Thai law as digital token offering under the digital asset law. Some may be considered as securities offering under the securities law, while others may not fall neatly into either box. So for STOs that offer something like investment tokens, which give the right to invest in any particular project or business. I think Khun Amphornphan can talk about this and elaborate on this later on as well. This may be considered as digital token offering, which is actually sometimes referred to in the Thai market as regulated ICOs under the Thai digital asset law, rather than securities law like in some other countries. So digital token offering can already be implemented, and the issuer must comply with certain requirements. For example, offering through an approved ICO portal, filing of prospectus, and if it's real estate backed project, then there are additional requirements as well. So this will affect the timeline and cost of the project. So it requires planning and adjusting along the way. I understand that there may be some regulated ICOs in the pipeline, and I hope to see the first approved regulated ICO project soon and many more to come. For STOs, that's investment tokens, right? For STOs that are backed by securities, such as shares or bonds, I think it must be clearly considered whether these are tokens of which the underlyings are securities, or whether they are actually securities themselves, but issued on blockchain, which are sometimes called digital securities rather than STOs. So the implications of the two may not be the same in some aspects. As to the examples around the world.
Maybe I can ask a bit, right, on this one. Like, I mean, I heard of the term DSO. Is that what you're talking about as well?
Some people are calling digital securities, but as I said, I think we're talking about terminologies here when people have different meanings attached to certain terminologies. So I think if we look at examples of STOs based on the context that I mentioned just now around the world, there have already been successful STOs projects already when they are backed by equity themselves, like shares, and also when they are backed by debt. There have also been some example of debt instruments issued in several countries, including actually in Thailand. Toyota Leasing Thailand and KBank have issued bonds through blockchain platform in collaboration with the Thai BMA, Thai Bond Market Association, under the SEC sandbox. However, some may categorize this as SEO, some may not. So that's a matter of how you define the terminology. And if you look at other asset class, for example, there are examples around using commodities to back the tokens. So commodities like gold, there are a few projects already. And properties like real estate, as Kun Park mentioned, I think that's a very interesting one as well. Because real estate tokens may be structured in many ways, and some may be considered as investment tokens, while others may involve more complicated issues and may have legal and regulatory challenges depending on how you structure the project. So real estate-backed tokens will need to be structured and considered very carefully. I think in Thailand, we will need to consider the characteristics of the tokens as to whether it falls under the definition of securities, under the securities law, or actually it falls under the definition of digital asset under digital asset law. And challenges arise when the tokens cannot be clearly categorized into any one of the existing boxes. And without clarity, I think business operators may be hesitant to issue these tokens before receiving regulatory clearance, which in practice may take some time and therefore affecting the timeline and cost of the project. So that's why I say that there must be a lot of planning and adjustments along the way. Also, the offering of some tokens may involve other laws like payment law, land law, or laws governing trading of specific commodities, and also tax law. This means getting involved with various other regulators too. So it is important that the business know what they want from the STO's project, and they need to understand the entire regulatory landscape and structure the tokens that comply with the laws and regulations of the relevant jurisdiction.
Perfect. I think you sum it up quite well. That like there's a law with each asset and different security, right? So even if you do a digital token offering on some of those, it has to be tied out to other law as well. Maybe we move on to Melody, right? From in Hong Kong perspective, have you seen any STO type of project yet, even as a bond or real estate, and like what is the framework there? I think you mentioned a bit about the framework already, right? That there's one framework. Yeah.
So we do hear about STO projects from time to time, but they are usually structured in private offering, and usually at a small scale. So about a few million US dollars to up to maybe 20 million. And similarly to the other panel speakers, the main underlying assets we've seen are real estate, and some are fund interests as well. And there are all other types of properties. So coming back to the Hong Kong licensing framework or the landscape, currently there is a lack of ecosystem for STO. Even though there is a licensing framework, no licenses have been granted yet, right, as of now. So there are no intermediaries or distribution channels for STO because no broker dealers or arrangers have been authorized to distribute security tokens. And also, one thing that I need to mention about the SFC licensing framework is that it covers all kinds of virtual assets, including security tokens. But SFC has taken a phased approach. And so currently, the definition of security tokens means that it has to be an asset-backed token that has been issued, or what we call seasoned, for 12 months before the licensee can list it on its venue or deal in it. So in practice, what this means for OSL, as and when it gets a license, it can only conduct trading in a security token in the secondary market because it will be a token that has been issued for 12 months, rather than facilitate the primary issuance an STO. But our expectation is that in time, the Hong Kong licensing regime and SFC will relax the framework and to slowly allow regulated entities to serve as primary venue or broker for STO issuances. And I also, I think what I've heard is that also in Thailand, there are it sounds like there are different tokens regulated under different framework. But I think I guess the cleverness of the SFC framework is that once a license, an entity gets a license to offer virtual asset trading services under that framework, it can basically deal in any type of digital tokens, be it utility, security, regardless of what the underlying assets are. And in OSL, we have created what we call a virtual asset admission policy, which covers, basically it's a due diligence exercise to cover all types of digital assets. And depending on the characteristics of the particular asset type, different level of due diligence or questions will have to be answered. So that's the way how we deal with it.
Yeah, I think it sounds very exciting. So maybe just one more question on you from Hong Kong side, right? I mean, is there any asset-backed token coming out soon, or is privately offering at the moment, right? Like you mentioned.
I've heard, so we haven't directly dealt with those. So there are certain exemptions. If it's structured as a private offering, then it doesn't require any registration, you can see. So these, my understanding is they are small scale, yeah, so I am not in a position to share, or actually know a lot of what the pipeline is as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe we have some time for Kun Amphornphan to share a bit, shed us some light on. Yeah,
definitely, and we're gonna stop at 11:25. But really eager to listen to Kun Amphornphan.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a quick brief about the STO then. When we mention about the STO and how it will be regulated, we have to look into the features, like Kun Diu said, mentioned before, that we have to look into the features and characteristics of those STO first. If the STO are classified as security under Section 4 of the Security Act, which include treasury bills, bond, bill, share, debenture, REIT, mutual fund, or any other instrument as specified by the law, it will be regulated within the existing securities law. However, the regulation under this law right now will be not accommodate the use of the technology and needed to be amended. As for the progress of the amendment of the securities law and regulation, I am not really sure about it, but from what I heard is that it's in the pipeline of the SEC to develop the regulation that enable the process of the digitized security. We may not call it security token because we can use any form, any type of technology to digitize securities. Maybe starting from the product of the debenture, REIT, and then mutual fund. But as for if the STO has a feature that is not classified as security specified in the Security Act, it will fall under the investment token of the Digital Asset Act. This investment token can range from like project-based ICO to asset-backed ICO. The way we regulate this investment token will follow the principle of risk-based approach. We try to study the business model that the industry wants to do, identify those risks, and find a way to minimize the risk. And this is quite challenging for us as well because the development of the ICO is going so fast. Within a year, it moved from the project-based ICO and to asset-backed ICO. And it turns out that a lot of people interested in this space, especially the real estate-backed ICO. A lot of deal that comes to us is not a small size, like a small company like the project-based ICO. And the business model is quite familiar and similar to REIT, but in a smaller scale, at least like 100 million baht. However, regulation of the project-based ICO at the time did not cover the key risks of the real estate-backed ICO, such as the due diligence on the asset, the requirement of the valuation of the asset, and also the safekeeping of the underlying asset, which is off-chain transaction. So that's why on May 2020, the regulation of real estate-backed ICO has been come out, and the issuer that will want to issue the real estate-backed ICO needs to do a due diligence on the asset. You have to use ICO portal to do a due diligence for you, you can. And you have to appoint a trustee to safekeep the asset, to make sure that the asset will not be abused or transferred to anyone without permission or without permission. And the asset appraisal as well must be made by an asset appraiser approved by the SEC. And in the near future, I think if the business interests to issue any other type of asset-backed ICO, you can bring the business model to consult with that. We will look into some regulation needs to be revised again, I guess. And of course, you may think that the regulation is quite heavy. We use a trustee, but if you like do a private offering or in a smaller scale with closed loop, you can you don't have to use a trustee, and you don't have to come to us for like get approval as well.
Okay, thanks a lot, and I'm sorry to cut you, but I think this panel can go on for the next 2 hours because there is so much to be said on Thailand regulations, and I'm sorry to have to cut it now because we need to go for the next one. But frankly, I really would like to thank you all for your time. I know you are all very busy, and this is a subject that we hear a lot, especially in Thailand, and I hope and I'm sure that actually the attendees learn a lot today. So to all of you, Kun Sanjay, thank you for moderating. Kun Amphornphan, thank you so much for your view on regulation. Kun Diu, thanks again, and you're the leading part of the law firms for digital assets. Melody, thank you so much. We are a very happy customer of OSL, and we already appreciate that we have you here. Kun Pak, thanks again for actually bringing your view from the banking side and with the ACT. With the new ACT project that you are launching. And thank you so much for all of you again. And we'll pass your contact in case there is any attendees asking us for any digital regulation information. Thank you again.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.